Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. We're going to talk about the NBA draft today and detail some of the tastiest passers in this year's draft class. I want to start off here with Anthony Black, freshman prospect from Arkansas. You think about everything we've seen throughout the NBA playoffs. You got these ball-dominant guys. They matter a lot. The guys who pound the dribble, who create offense. They're the center of the solar system for their teams. But the guys that I like watching most are those kind of connective glue pieces. They just keep the ball moving. They can run some pick and roll for you if necessary. But if they catch the ball at the left wing, they know to find that cutter at the basket. They know to swing it to the open shooter in the left corner. They know how to keep the ball moving. And the guy who comes to mind to me that fits that description probably the most in this year's draft class is Anthony Black out of Arkansas. Freshman player. He brings those skills at a high level. We saw that all freshman season for him playing with Nick Smith, another potential lottery pick. I look forward to seeing where Black goes. I hope he goes to a team like the Pacers, somebody like that, like Utah, where they have good ball movement and he can fit right in and just be a guy who immediately is helping his teammates get better on the floor.
Yeah, I love Anthony Black. I saw him at the Maui Invitational, and one thing that you noticed was the team was better when he was on ball and he was almost running point. He was playing the three, but he had Devo Davis, who was the more traditional point guard. You had Nick Smith, obviously, who was a guy who was much more heralded than he was coming into college. But in general, just that dynamic, you could see that Eric Musselman trusted him with the ball in his hands. He was able to get guys involved. The only thing that worried me sometimes with Anthony Black, he could get a little erratic, but that just happens when you're 19 years old and you're trying to make things happen at a high level. So I like him as a passer, and I think he is a very tasty passer, to put it in your terms, KOC.
Kyle, who comes to mind to you as one of the tastiest passers in this year's draft class?
Back-to-back years, we have interesting wing handlers coming out of Santa Clara. Now, Brandon Pajimski is a kid who transferred from Illinois to get more open runway to develop and get better at Santa Clara for the Broncos. He's about 6'5", a lefty. He can shoot the ball. He's one. I'm glad that you categorized it between like connectors and guys who are like defense benders with their own offense and can pass the ball. Pajimski can score the ball. He's a good shooter, and he is a really creative passer. He's not ambidextrous like with his live dribble passing, but he's very creative. I could even see him kind of becoming one of those guys. I don't know that he'll be a first-round pick. He's probably a second-round pick, but he seems like somebody that's going to float in that zone where he's going to make a team, maybe a Ty Jerome level player who can, sort of come in and serve a role. Where he goes from there, but he has like a well-rounded skill set that if he does work on his body and he does work on some of the things that he needs to improve on, he could go from there.
You said the second year in a row from a Santa Clara prospect. Jalen Williams rises into the lottery last year, gets taken by Oklahoma City, but you're comparing him to more of a Ty Jerome type.
Yes.
Jerome hasn't exactly worked out in the NBA, for a lot of different reasons. But Tate, with him, do you think he has that type of first-round upside? Do you see him as a guy who sticks in the NBA?
Yeah, and I think, a lot of people were calling him the point pod, not the point god. And at the Combine, he looks great. I've heard a lot of rave reviews about what Pajimski's been able to do. I love that he went to Santa Clara to get his own space to kind of showcase who he is as a player. It's tough to be at Illinois in general. And, look, Ty Jerome in OKC was great. I thought behind Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he was a nice, stable horse, for them. And with the Warriors, I think he's been able to grow into his game. Maybe, the point pod doesn't come out and he's dominating year 1, year 2, year 3 like a Wemby or someone of that ilk would do. But I think, he's someone that can hang around a team and be a good piece for you.
I'd tack one stat on there. In the pick and roll this year, just to add to his passing acumen, if you want to speculate that he could grow, on 42 attempts, he shot almost 36% on pull-up threes in college. So that's a pretty good number.
That's the type of number that can draw a defense out when you're running that high pick and roll and forces them to potentially hedge, bring the big man up to touch. And if he can drive to the basket with some of the physical limitations, that's what can, make him a valuable player in half-court offense. And he's got that connective feel too.
Yeah.
Where if he is playing a more limited role. Tate, who comes to mind to you as one of the tastiest passers this year?
Kyle brought up Illinois, and my mind immediately went to Coleman Hawkins from Illinois, his old teammate. And Hawkins, one of his greatest skills was, similar to, not to compare him to Jokic, but he could start the break himself, right? He gets the rebound and he can bring the ball up. He can initiate offense. He had a couple times, he had a triple-double in one sense, but he had a couple games where, it just looked like he could have 15 assists. And he was the one that drove their offense at time. He was at times their best point guard. They had a lot of issues this year with Sky Clark, and they had both their guys ended up transferring that were their point guards in the offseason. So Coleman Hawkins, 6'10", 225. I think he has a lot of upside. I think he has a lot of basketball IQ. If you Google him, the American saxophonist Coleman Hawkins may come up, but in a few years, who knows? Who knows? He might be the guy. He might be the number one Coleman Hawkins, and I think it's because of his passing.
It'd be a heck of an ascension if he could pull that off.
Hey, you never know, right? You never know.
Yeah.
I mean, with that type of playmaking ability, like, he whips the ball around the floor.
Absolutely.
Sometimes he's infuriating, though. I can see why like players transfer away from Illinois when he's making mistakes up there.
And Brad Underwood's face is just redder than ever.
Brendan Gleeson lookalike. Yeah. Hawkins is fun though because he's like he's 6'10". I didn't see his exact measurements, but like Illinois has been kind of like erratic. Just like the shakeup has been prevalent in Illinois recently with the coaches and the players coming in and out. And I think he's been kind of trying to find his way on the roster over the past few years. But he's somebody, I was telling Kevin this, that if he sticks with a good organization, I could see him just like materializing in some moment, like having an NBA moment, because he's huge and he has a wide-ranging skill set.
Yep.
It's going to be very interesting to see the way, like, which players actually stick in the NBA. But like, there's a lot of guys, we've talked about some of them, the Thompson twins, Jaime Jaquez can handle a little bit, play make for you. Sidi Sissoko out of the G League as a forward can do that too. Scoot Henderson, of course, as well. A lot of good passers in this draft, but we'll see which guys actually pan out in the NBA.